Did you make an oopsie? Hey y'all, Tom, ND3N here, and thanks for dropping by my little shack in the corner for a ham shack chat. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 mistakes that I've seen a lot of hams do. I'll even go as far as to say, talk to some of the older hams, and they're telling the truth. They'll fess up that maybe they've crossed the line on a couple of these. The first can be categorized as a functional mistake, or a mistake you make while operating. The second is a practical mistake, or a mistake that you make out of ignorance and certainly not willfully. The final mistake is a philosophical one that is part of the human condition and which has torn apart many organizations, including ham clubs, neighbors, friends, even family. Now, it should be noted that all of these are mistakes. They are errors in judgment and very seldom done maliciously. However, these mistakes could be, if discovered by the wrong people, they could result from anything from being rejected from an organization or ejected from an organization, receiving a tersely worded letter from the FCC, or even having to attend court where you may receive a significant fine and have your ham radio gear seized. Yet, they are mistakes and can be prevented pretty easily with knowledge, skill, and foresight. Many of us like to live on the edge, and that extends to our ham operations. Now, when I talk about the edge of our ham operations, I'm talking about band edges. The big mistake I'm talking about, and I hear it all the time on the air, a lot of, especially during contests where you're really trying to squeeze in, is when the ham operator forgets that their signal extends above or below, depending on upper sideband or lower sideband use, the dialed transmit frequency. For example, say you are a brand new /AG general class operator. You've just rushed home from the test session to begin working on 40-meter phone. Now, your new privileges begin at 7.175 megahertz or 7,175 kilohertz. I'll be referring to the kilohertz version of this. They're the same thing. And if you have a band plan around, take a look at it and maybe follow along. So you tune your rig to 7175, right where your new privileges begin, and you hear someone calling CQ. Do not reply to this CQ because you're working lower sideband. This means that you will actually be transmitting your signal at around 7172 kilohertz, which is outside of your privileges. Note that for the purposes of this video, I am assuming, and so should you, that your voice modulation will be approximately 3000 kilohertz. So instead of starting your search for a QSO at 7175, probably better to start looking at 7178. That way, take 3 off of that, you'll still be within your privileges. Now, by the way, an extra class operator can certainly call CQ at 7175, as it is well within their privileges. However, that same extra class operator can make the same mistake if they're transmitting at the band edge of their privileges, down 7125. The same principles apply across all HF bands, and for the technician class operators, care should be taken with their 10-meter phone privileges, which have a top edge at 28.5 megahertz or 28,500 kilohertz. Using the upper sideband which is appropriate for 10 meters. In SSB mode, now if you transmit with your radio dial set above 28,497, a portion of your signal will extend beyond your privileges. Care should be taken on the 6 meter and 2 meter bands where there is a 100 kilohertz CW only section at the very bottom of these bands. So even though your radio will transmit there, don't fire it up and start calling CQ down at that small section. Again, refer to your band plan. In short, be aware of the bands that you're privileged to use, and be aware that you must keep your signal or any portion of your signal, that's what the regs say, within your privileges. And don't limit your knowledge to just what frequencies you can use, but know what modes can be used on which bands. For example, on HF, a technician is allowed to use data modes such as FT8 and FT4 only on the 10 meter band. The rest of the HF privileges that you have is down on CW only. There's another mistake that a lot of hams make. Again, it's not done with any sort of maliciousness. Matter of fact, it could be considered performing a community service. However, it is something you need to be aware of. Now, I'm not an attorney, and neither are most hams. However, ignorance of the regulation is no excuse, and you will be held accountable if you cross this line. Though I'm not an attorney, I feel good about giving the legal advice to talk to an attorney who understands the FCC regulation, and that talk would be prudent. Ham clubs and individual hams are quite often approached to provide our unique communication services. It could be supporting a marathon race or a county fair, or any of a myriad of other sorts of supports. Every request of us needs to be considered separately. Just because you've been doing something for a few years doesn't mean that it's now right for you to do it. Consider it and make your decision accordingly. Keep in mind that we cannot accept any type of remuneration or accept anything of value for our service. We also need to be aware that the service can only be performed if there isn't an existing reasonable alternative available. This means if the group that you are supporting could reasonably lease radios or hire a professional business to perform the communications, then we're not allowed to provide our support. If everything is kosher, then make sure that you have an agreement with the organization about the specifics of your support. Are you expected to provide security or first aid services? Are you expected to observe and report any violations of the rules to the organizers? Or are you just eyes and ears to keep everything moving along? At least have a conversation. But written down is better. A memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement between the organization and your ham club or the individuals involved would not be out of the question. Now, I'm only addressing hams and Part 97, but GRMS, FRS, and even CBers are regulated by the FCC and have their own limitations. If you have the slightest doubt, consult a lawyer who is familiar with Part 97 or just decline the request.
I respectfully decline.
Finally, many of us belong to outside organizations such as churches, synagogues, veterans organizations, social lodges, motorcycle clubs, and even online groups. Now, I've seen groups like this take over a ham club and forget that it is a ham club, not part of their outside group. This has caused infighting amongst the club members who may or may not agree with whatever the outside group wants to do. So, keep in mind that what brings us together as hams is amateur radio. While we may support some of these outside groups, everything has to be done to put ham radio in the best possible light and to improve our skills as hams and make us better operators. Within your ham club, race, faith, politics, anything else that can divide us has no place.
I am called Ham since I enjoy ham radio.
All three of these types of mistakes are easy to overcome. In our operations, be aware of your signal and your mode, and keep them both within your privileges. In providing community support, understand the limits of what that support can be, and don't be afraid to say no if you have any concerns. Legal advice is available through the ARRL, and a simple email or phone call can resolve a lot of your questions. Finally, remember why you became a ham and the camaraderie that you have felt in this hobby. Don't let anything divide you or make you feel like less of an amateur because of outside influences. Thanks for dropping by my little shack in the corner for a Ham Shack chat. This time, about 3 mistakes I've seen hams make over and over again. Again, I'll remind you that these mistakes are usually just mistakes. And they're all easy to avoid. Now, if you got anything out of this video, please give me a like.
Please like me. Please.
By clicking on that thumbs up icon. And please share this
Sharing is good.
with friends who may appreciate the content, especially those on social media. Please leave any comments or questions
A little comment
down in the section below. And finally, I certainly would appreciate your consideration in subscribing to this channel.
I subscribe to Team B.
Here's a video that you might want to watch. I made it several months ago, and in fact it was one of my very first videos. I was new to the world of YouTube when I made this, and I hope I've become better at presenting myself since then. 73. Always at your service, I'm Tom, ND3N, and I am out.